Hi friends, welcome back to Merstack. In today's session, we are going to talk about the more, transaction management in MuleSoft terms. So we'll be discussing what is transaction, when you need a transaction, what are the type of transactions supported by MuleSoft, what are the transactional actions available which can change the behavior of the transaction. Okay, what is nested transaction, what are the components supports the transaction, who can initiate the transaction, who can support or participate in the transaction. All these terms will explain in detail. Okay, so let's start with what is transaction in terms of MuleSoft. So in MuleSoft, transactions are nothing but the operations. Okay, so when you want a series of steps in flow must succeed or fail as a unit or as an atomic operation, Mule uses a transaction to demarcate that unit or that atomic operation. Okay, that is the exact definition in terms of MuleSoft. I can give one example. You might use a transaction to encapsulate several steps in a flow that results in committing information to database. In this scenario, your transaction either fully commit or fully roll back. It won't commit partially. Okay, so let's talk about the transaction type. Before that, we'll talk about what are the components they can define the transaction or participate in the transaction. So the message queues, it can be a JMS or VM or and database connector. Okay, and the try scope. These three things, can participate and can create the transaction. So operations on this, so let me differentiate between who can create or initiate the transaction. The listeners on this component, message queue component and the database component, only listeners can initiate the transaction, and the operations on those components, like if you're talking about message queue, the publish and consume. Okay, and if I'm talking about database connector, insert, select. Okay, and other operations, those can participate or join the transaction. Okay, so let's talk about what are the types of transactions supported by the MuleSoft. So MuleSoft supports single resource, which is local default. Okay, so name itself says single resource, means if this tribe scope create and initiate a transaction which only supports the operation on the same connector, only single resource you can use it here. So if you're using database, then only you can use the database. You can't add one more resource here like JMSQ and say publish. No. Okay, so that is what the local transaction or single resource means. Okay, it is actually performed better than the XA. XA is the extended architecture. It involves two-phase commit. So that is in database terms. So our scope is not to explain that what is two-phase, but it's like first phase is the prepare and second phase is the commit. In if you want to go in detail, you can Google it and search what is two-phase commit. Okay. It supports the this XA. I'm talking about the extended architecture transaction. It supports a nested transaction. Nested transaction means you have try, which is initiating transaction, and we have one more try inside it. Okay, so try inside try, both are starting transaction. That is nested transaction. But the local one, local or single resource, won't support that. Okay, so XA supports the nested transaction, local one don't support the nested transaction. Local only supports single resource. XA supports multiple resource. You can have multiple resource here. Okay. Then we need external resource to handle this XA, transaction. So we need external resource manager to handle this. So in this demo or in this session, I'm not going to show how exactly the XA work because it needs external resource. But I have process flow where technically I'll explain how we can implement or how we can make use of XA. Okay. Let's move on to the transactional actions. So as I told, the listeners will have different transactional actions, operations will have different transaction actions, and the try scope will have different. So let's talk about all those. Let me talk about all those in one shot. So there is always begin. Okay, so name itself tells you that always start the new transaction. Okay, So if this try is a part of another transaction, then in that case, based on your transaction, outer transaction, this try can be a part of other transaction, right? So in that case, if if this try is a part of local transaction, then if you use always begin, then in that case it will throw error because local won't support nested transaction. But if our outer transaction is XA type, then if you say always begin, then it will start new transaction. So it will be a part of nested transaction. Okay. Second thing is begin or join. So begin or join is like if transaction is already exist, okay, in progress, when then join that transaction if possible. Otherwise, start a new one. Okay, begin or join. So if already transaction in progress, just join it. Otherwise, start new one. Okay, and then third one is a indifferent. Indifferent is saying that. Don't treat actions as a transaction. So this action don't treat a transaction at all. Okay, so these three. Let's see other operations. Here you can see. Let me show you. Go to advanced. So here you always join if possible and not supported. So always join means it name itself that if transaction in progress, join it. Okay, join if possible. If transaction is there, if possible, join it. Okay, otherwise no transaction be created. Not supported is don't support the support that transaction, just execute outside that transaction. Okay, so these are the few transaction actions. Few are there. Let me show you quickly. Go down and so there will be a none. Okay. So here, let's go to the, so always begin and none. Okay. So none and always begin and none are available with the listener and try scope. Okay. And none means it says that do not initiate any transaction. Okay. So default will be none. Okay. And uh, so that's all about the transaction actions. Let's talk about the configuring, message source. So this is the message source where we are initiating the transaction. Let me show you this one. So when you configure and says that you want to start the transaction on this source, then you need to go to the advanced and say that always begin. So always begin will start the transaction. Okay, and then default you are saying that use a local, or based on your requirement you can select the transaction type. If you want to create a nested transaction, use XA, or if you want to perform on the same resource, then you can use the local one. Okay, now let's see how to configure try. Let's go to the try scope, and here you can go to the general tab, and here you can see the transactional action. You can select whichever you want based on your requirement. So I have selected always begin. That means I am always starting the new transaction. Okay, and I'm saying that local, I'll be using same resource inside the transaction. Okay, so that's all from the configuring and what are the actions available, what are the types of transactions supported by MuleSoft, what are the components which are supporting the transaction. Let's see how the behavior of transaction when we are using this transaction actions. Okay, so I have listed down, or I have created few scenarios where we'll start with first one, where I'm using database. So I have a database where I'm inserting data to this table. I don't have anything right now in the data. And I have ActiveMQ JMS queue where I'm using this queue to publish or consume. Okay, so right now I don't have any masses there. So let's see and simulate all those scenarios so that I can explain all these scenarios. Okay. So first scenario is I'm creating a new transaction, local transaction, and I'm inserting the data. So there is no error handler. There are no issues with this. So okay, so let's run this and see whether it's inserting data to the, whether it's committing data to the table or not. Okay. So let's see. First one is the simple. Okay, insert employee. Let me go and run this one. Quickly, we'll run all those scenarios. Okay, so I think it's not running. Let me hold on. The application was not running. Now it's running. You can see that the result set was written. Let's go to the table and see what exactly inserted. So you can see that now with the 45 ID, the data is inserted. Let's go to the second flow now. Okay. So inside the second flow, what I'm doing is I am explicitly raising the error so that this flow or this operation will get rolled back. Okay. So here also we are creating local transaction. We have insert operation, but now we have issue. Okay. So let's run this and see. Let me, I don't have any error handle right now there. So this should throw error. You can see that 500 now. Let's go to the database. If we execute, there is no record. Okay, so this means that this this operation is rolled back. Okay, because it was a part of, and we have configuration here where we are saying that join. So this try is creating a local transaction and this operation is participating or joining the transaction. And since we got the error here and we don't have any error handler, so this operation rolled back. Okay, now let's see third scenario where I have error handler now. Similar scenario, we are creating local transaction. This operation is participating that transaction and we are throwing error explicitly here to simulate that scenario. Okay, and then I have error handler here. So in this scenario, what happens? Once you get the error here, it will go to the error handler, and where I have on error continue, it it executes the operations under this, and these operations also will be part of the transaction because it won't throw error back to the listener or the parent transaction. Okay, so in simple terms, the operations under the error handler or if your error handler is on error continue, then the operations inside that error handler also part of transaction. Okay, so let's see. So this should commit the transaction, this transaction. Okay, so let's run this and see whether it's inserting a record inside the table or not. Okay, so okay, so yes, we can see the result set object. So let's go to the table and execute it. Now you can see here, notice it. The second time, I mean, ID value is 45 and then 47. We are missing 46, right? So 46 was the exactly the record which was inserted, then roll back. So we have a proof now that record was inserted and then roll back because of this issue. So second process flow. Okay. Now, but here we have handled it. Okay. And we didn't throw back to the try scope. So these operations, committed successfully. That's the reason we are able to see 47 ID record here. Okay. So let's go back. Now what we are doing is we have error handler, but now this error handler is on error propagate. Okay, let's see, run this and see what happens. Okay, let me run it again. You can see error now because, and let's go here and see whether record is inserted. No, we can see only 45 and 46. Now if I run it again with this one, just wanted to show you the difference. Now you see 48 is missing because 48 was rollback. That's the reason we are not able to see 48 here, but 49 is coming because of this process flow where we are handling it properly. Okay, sorry. Okay, so we are done with the and one thing here I wanted to tell you, when there is an error in a try and we have on error propagate, before reaching propagate on error propagate error handler, these transactions gets rolled back. Okay, that is what I can't differentiate between on error continue and on error propagate, but internally it happens that way. it before going inside the on error propagate, it's roll back. Okay. And on error continue, it goes inside, and all the operations inside on error continue will be part of the transactions. Okay. But the activities inside, because transaction is already rolled back, the activities or operations or processor which we are executing inside on error propagate, those won't be a part of transaction. Okay. Now let's see, if I'm creating a transaction, local transaction, I have publish operation here. And if I am invoking a subflow, in that case also a subflow operations will be a part of your transaction, current running transaction. Okay. Whatever you're doing, if these operations which are part of the subflow, if fails, then your current running transaction also roll back. Let's see this one. Okay. So what I'm doing is I am trying to publish it. Okay. And then I have published, and then I have invoked the this flow, and this flow raises the error. Okay. Let's see. So I have flow reference. So I can see that error. Okay. And I have a message queue here. Let me refresh. I don't see any message published here. Okay. Now let's see what we can do is we can remove that flow reference. Let's see, remove it. Let me save it. Meanwhile, I'll explain other so that it will be up and running. So now if I create a local transaction and if I add a multiple resource here, you can see this is the message queue and this is database. So local transaction won't support multiple resources. So this guy will fail. Okay. So we'll execute that. Let me check whether it's up and running. Yes, it's up and running. But before that, I wanted to run the same flow again without flow reference. Okay. You can see that the message is published to the message queue. Refresh it. Yes. See the message queue. The message is published here. Okay. So flow reference, the operations from the subflow also will participate to the current running process flow, sorry, transaction. Okay. Now we'll see local transaction with multiple resource. So let me run that and show you. Okay, insert and public. I have two operations. Let me run this and show you what happens. Okay, so it's aborted. Okay, why it's aborted? The second operation in the process flow, if you see, publish is fine. Second, I have insert. Okay, in any order if you put it, right? So if you put publish after this, then publish will throw error. If you right now we have insert after publish, so insert is failing error. Okay, so what is the error? Error is saying that operation insert of extension database uses transactional connection. Okay, and but the current transaction doesn't support it, could not be bound. Okay, so what it means, I have local transaction, this operation also want to join and this operation also wants to join, and that will be like that won't be supported by the local transaction. Okay, that's the reason it's failing. Okay, so for this scenario we need a extended architecture transaction. Okay, so same thing, you need to change it to XA and it will work fine, but we need an external resource manager to handle this. I won't be able to execute this. I won't be able to start this. Let's run this and see what error we are getting. Okay, so let me go to this guy quickly and let's run this and see. You can see here cannot start XA transaction. Okay, so in this scenario we can use a Bitronics, but that is not that is out of our scope for this session. Okay, I wanted to explain what is transaction, how we can handle it. Okay, and other scenarios are like nested transactions. So I was telling you try inside a try. Okay, so you can see this try also starting XA and these are also starting X. They can both start local also. Okay, but local won't support the nested transaction. So in that case, we need XA only. Okay, then this message queue start. This message queue listener can start the transaction. Here we can see always start. Here you can based on your requirement you can start. And one more source. who can start the transaction is the on table row. Okay, here also you can on your requirement you can start the transaction. Yeah. So that's all from this session. We have scopes and routers. This transaction, how the transaction affects the scope and routers. You can go and explore more. That is not scope of this session. Okay. In future, maybe I can come up with some, process flows based on that. But you can explore. Okay. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. Okay, I tried my best to explain. Okay, with small flows. Yeah, make sure you are sharing these videos with the friends. Hit the bell icon and subscribe the channel if you are not done. Okay, thank you.